Hello and welcome to our extended disc 15-minute webinar on a very cold and wet Houstonian day. My name is Christina Bowser and I'm the training director here at Extended Disc, and joining me today is my awesome colleague, Wilma Stevens, senior trainer. Hey Wilma.
Hi Christina, how are you? It is
You're
cold in Texas.
It is, well, cold is relative. I guess we shouldn't complain. I think it's just below 50 or around 50, but
it's get a sweater. Get a sweater. It's
yeah,
sweater weather.
It is. So for those of you that joined us last week, we talked about communication tips for communicating with D styles. So this week, we're going to concentrate on I styles. And of course, don't worry, we will follow up with S styles and C styles. So the title, we called it, Who is Listening to You? Communicating Your Message to I styles. And as always, we will record this. We will put it on our YouTube channel, Extended Disc North America. Any questions that you have, please put in the Q&A section. And if we get to it live, we will. Otherwise, we promise we'll answer it after the session is over. I think I got everything, Wilma.
Absolutely.
So let's get going. When we're talking about, we assume that, of course, you guys have a working knowledge of DISC, but our kind of purpose today is just to give you some kind of refreshers, some motivators to talk about different styles. And of course, today we're specifically talking about I styles. So we have our bright and cheery Ian here, and let's talk about him.
I love Ian because Ian is fun and Ian is enthusiastic and Ian is like energetic and he brings all this energy to the team. A little emotional, can be impulsive, has a real selling style, is persuasive, and of course he's positive. Like the glass is not half full for Ian, it is overflowing. Remember Ian, he wants you to like him, and that is the biggest cue and tip right there. If you work with an I, make sure you like them, and even when you're not liking them, make sure that you can make sure that you keep that going, like even if you have to pretend. Their communication style for a guy like Ian is inspiring. The hallmark would be talkative, chatty, 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 chatty. And as we mentioned, positive. The preferred environment, fast, friendly, lots of variety. He wants you to like him. He's going to do things that he feels are in his best interest that you will like as well. He's most comfortable actively involved with people. And I always say this about eyes, like a really good eye with those good skills can walk into a room and get the pulse of the room immediately. They know how people are feeling and they really get all the cues. Under pressure, because Ian is so focused on how everybody's feeling and how everybody is doing, Ian can get disorganized. Sometimes tasks and things can fall through the cracks for Ian. So we always say for Ian, it would do him a favor to use his to-do list, write things down, so that he keeps himself organized. And his fear, social rejection. Ian wants to be part of the club. He wants to be in. He doesn't want to be on the outside looking in. He wants to be in. And I can relate to that.
I think Wilma, I think you taught this to me. Wilma was my first trainer, my mentor. But we always jokingly said that, some people like Ian, they never meet a stranger. It's like everyone is an opportunity for an interaction.
No stranger danger.
Exactly. So, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about tips. Just, when we talk about these tips, what's great about them is oftentimes these adjustments that we make is just almost like just a conscious reminder to ourselves, hey, I'm interacting with an I style. Maybe just build in some time to chat or give them opportunities to speak. What's great about these adjustments that we often are asking ourselves to make is they are temporary, so I'm not telling myself I have to be an I style. But if I think about what motivates that I style to interact with me, to be interested in what I'm trying to get across to them. A good way I always tell people is think of each style, in this case, I styles, as having their own language. That if I were to speak the I style language, and it might be things that I need to remind myself to do, like maybe inject more emotion in the words I use. Think about adding those exclamation points at the end of my sentences. Use more descriptive words. For many of us, we're much more economical in our descriptive words. We might say things like, "Oh, that's good," or "That's fine," right? For an ISA, they may not know what you're saying. What does good mean? But if you say, "That was amazing," "That was fantastic," "That was awesome," "That was the best session I've ever been to," it's like this connection. They are much more engaged in what you have to say. So, just a couple other tips I have here is show enthusiasm. They like to move at a faster pace. They are most engaged when they have the opportunity to kind of sit center stage. So ask their opinions, let them speak, be open to discussions. And, again, the don't do this are just simply things that may not come as natural to us, not being I style. So sometimes we like to focus on details, but you may lose your I style if you focus too much on detail. And I know all of us have had this experience where, maybe an I style colleague or an I style friend comes up to you and says, "Oh my gosh, Wilma, I have this great ideas. And, I think if we just do this, this, and this, and this," and you're thinking and you say it out loud, "No, that's just not how we do things here. We have to go by the rules." And it's almost like you watch the light just kind of drain right out of them. So just remember, try to avoid reacting negatively. Listen to what they have to say. Don't put down their enthusiasm. They love flexibility. They love variety. They like to be many things to many people. So think about avoiding that kind of inflexibility. And I think, Wilma, you say this better than I do, but when you're ignoring an I style, that's basically, you're saying that you don't want to interact with them. But I think, Wilma, you said this, if you want to ignore them because you're sending a message, that's one way to do it.
Well, it's a strategy to bug them, right? Like they'll be wringing their hands going like, what did I do? What happened here? It's just like details. Remember, DISC does not talk about how smart we are. Like if the details are necessary, bring them on, right? Like it's not that, but I think the I is filtering it like, oh, details, schmetails. Like give me the top 3 details, and then move on. But I always say about ignoring, like 2 of my boys, they lead as an I style, and or they have I style in them. And like if I ignore them, say we've had an argument and I need to time out, oh, they're like, my girls, they can wait it out. They sit on the left-hand side of the model. They're much more patient about that. So yes, ignoring, I don't think I's, they like to be in the mix. They like to be involved. They don't want to be sidelined, really. So remote communication tips. We're doing so much more communication remotely, whether we're like Zooming or whether we're on the phone or writing emails. How do we make sure we communicate in a fashion? Digital communication is changing the game because we're doing so much more of it now. So for an email, you don't want to overuse the data and the details, right? I mean, if an I style receives an email that's just chapter and verse on and on, like they're reading the novel War and Peace, they're just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? I would suggest like some bullet points and the pertinent information in the attachment. Obviously, the phone is fast. The phone is an interaction where I can hear your voice. It ups the friendliness too, right? But I's like the phone typically, and it gives them a moment to kind of, hey, how are you doing? Get that chit chat out. In terms of virtual meetings, well, I guess an iStyle probably prefers live interactions, but they will prefer like a virtual meeting over, say, remember back in the day where we would have that telephone in the center of the boardroom and we were all talking to that speaker. So the fact that we can see our iStyle and we can also see their body language, that's helpful for us because the iStyle will engage in that probably much more willingly than other styles.
Yeah, I think
What
with when you think about emails, it's a great way. I always jokingly say, not only is it one way to write an email, but it's a good way to recognize iStyles because, as
yeah.
styles, our colleagues, we're not labeled, right? We don't go around with these letters on our chest telling you what style they are. But things like emails can give you kind of a quick insight. If someone sends you an email, and the subject heading says, what time is the meeting today? And you open up the email and the body of the email and there's nothing but the signature because everything was said in the subject heading, probably a D style, right? But once I had gotten directions to an Airbnb that I was going to, and I opened it up and it was like, once you exit the airport, get your car, keep driving. And when you see the gas station, turn right. But if you see a cow field, you went too far, go back. It's like, basically, it was like someone actually talking to you. So emails like that, I'm like, okay, definitely an iStyle, a little bit conversational all over the place. So not only, can we look at emails in terms of, do iStyles prefer emails? They love communication. They love any interaction. However, if you're going to email an iStyle, think about their style and how you present that email. A lot of us who sit on the left side of the model, as Wilma said, we prefer to send these emails. It gives us time to process it, to think about it, to document it. But sometimes get outside your comfort zone, pick up the phone, and then if you still feel like the need, follow up with an email. But that connection, that live connection to your iStyles is going to get them much more energized and engaged. And we know with our iStyles, the happier they are by having those live interactions, the better they will respond. And they actually do better work because iStyles work happy. So those are kind of some of our tips. Any additional tips that
I was going to say something that you mentioned there about emails. The other thing that when you look at digital communication, punctuation is a really big thing. Now, quite often, we can speak into our phone. I am happy to send a text message speaking into my phone, and I'm looking at the punctuation or lack thereof of punctuation. I'm still happy to go send, depending on who it is. My style, I sit on the right-hand side of the model, and I just want to communicate my message. Punctuation, well, if it was a more of a formal setting, I'd think harder. But, if I was just sending a quick thing and I need some info, it might not have that punctuation. If I receive something from my husband who sits on the left-hand side of the model, oh, we're not going to miss a punctuation. It's capitalized, it's all in there with a signature at the bottom. So I think as well, we're all getting better at remote communication because we're doing so much more of it. And once you start noticing a couple little tips from the styles, this will help you in terms of how that person wants to receive communication. But I will add, if you like to punctuate your emails, go ahead, right? But if you receive one that doesn't have all the punctuation, lose the judgment, right?
Just again, these are just very simple tips. I mean, a lot of us will do it, but it's almost like me just saying out loud, okay, I'm going to send an email to Wilma. Maybe hit those bullet points instead of typing out a long, detailed email. And I know that there's a good chance she's just going to pick up the phone and answer my question, or she sends me the verbal text. So just remember, these are things that we all can do. We wouldn't be where we are if we, weren't able to make these adjustments. But what DISC does is it just reminds us that, hey, this is where I am, this is where I sit on the model, and this is where someone like Wilma sits on the model, and this is how she's different from me. So these are some adjustments that I can consciously make. That's the bottom line.
Nice way to celebrate, right? Celebrate our differences, celebrate our similarities.
Well, thank you. Hopefully you guys got some energetic, motivating little tips about the I styles. We will continue our series and we're going to focus on S styles next week. It will be on Wednesday, December 9th, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, on how S styles prefer to communicate. You can sign up at extendeddisc.org. Just hit the events tab in the upper right corner and we will see you then. Thanks for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Stay well.